Hello everybody, I'm Ian Abernethy, and in this video I want to discuss some logical fallacies as they apply to the traditional martial arts. So there can't have been a better time to learn martial arts. We are able to share information like never before. Now, the downside of this, of course, is not all information shared will be of equal value. And as we, as individual martial arts practitioners, have to look at this information and decide what makes most sense to us. What are we personally going to practice? Which ideas are we personally going to accept? Now, as part of that, we obviously have lots of debates and lots of discussions, which good ideas will welcome, because good ideas grow stronger from being challenged. Obviously, it's only the weak ideas that get washed away. But some of the time, the quality of debate is so poor that bad ideas are allowed to persist. And this is what I want to look at in this video, is some logical fallacies that we see quite a lot, that we need to be vigilant in order to avoid, so therefore we can truly look at information that's been put forwards and then deciding whether we deem that information to have value or not. Okay, so the first one, which is a big one in the traditional martial arts world, is appeal to authority. And this is when a person with standing in a given community or experience or education or whatever it happens to be says something and we accept it as being true simply because they said it, okay? We don't look further to say, well, why do they believe it to be true? What evidence have we got to back that up? Now, of course, if someone's an authority on a given subject, they're more likely to say truthful things than someone who isn't an authority. But people with authority can still be wrong, and we need to see the working. So we should never accept something as being true or valid just because a person with authority or standing said it. It's not true because Grandmaster X said it, or Downgrade Y said it, or World Champion Z said it. It's true because it's true. And we need to see the argument stand on its own 2 feet and avoid appeal to authority. So the next one is Argumentum Ad Populum. It's like an appeal to the masses, that something must be true because a large number of people believe it to be true. Again, we see this a lot within traditional martial arts communities, where there's dogma that persists, there's widely held views that do not stand up to challenge and scrutiny. I could start listing a few off, but I don't want the video to be about those topics. I want it to be about logical fallacies, right, and how they apply. But to give a couple of very quick examples, that 3-step sparring is a good idea, that hikate adds power, that the techniques of the kata are for fighting multiple opponents at angles. These ideas exist widely within the population, despite, when looked at closely, having little validity to support them. So just because a lot of people believe it to be true does not mean it is true. Again, we need to see the argument stand on its own 2 feet. So a related one is proof by assertion, which has been asserted so many times that we accept it as being true. Now, that may be one individual saying it over and over again, or related to the last one, it could be the masses. But again, an argument is true or false based on the strength of that argument alone, not with how widely held the view happens to be, or how often it has been repeated. An argument is valid or invalid based on the strength of the argument itself, not how often it is being asserted. The next one is appeal to moderation, and that's a view that the truth must always lie between the 2 extremes. It doesn't. The truth lies where the truth lies. So to give an example, in the recent hikate discussions, we've got the view that I put forth that hikate is tactical, and then you've got the alternative view that hikate is for power generation, right? And I disagree with one and agree with the other. And a common bit of feedback I got is, well, can't it be both? Surely it lies somewhere between the 2. No, that's a logical fallacy of appeal to moderation. I'm of the view that the argument for the tactical use of hikate is very strong. Whereas the argument for power generation is weak. I've never heard a good argument yet that convinces me that idea has got any validity. So therefore, I shouldn't just dock myself in the middle through appeal to moderation. I should dock myself where I believe the truth lies. Now, related to this is sometimes in internet discussions, people will get personally offended because a view that they hold has been challenged. And I get that. Well, I've had accusations of being disrespectful or offensive, which is not me. Again, I challenge anyone. Look at 20 years of written material. Look at all my videos. Find a single example, just one. Find one single example where I've ever said anything negative or derogatory about any individual, even when those individuals have been quite negative and derogatory about me, And the reason I don't do that is because I believe it to be bad manners and it's bad debate. Right? The fact is the truth lies where the truth lies, right? So I can disagree with the idea that an individual holds while still respecting that individual. We don't need to meet in the middle, right? And same likewise, I know there's lots of stuff I put out that lots of people disagree with, and that's fine. I really don't take any offense at that whatsoever. It's good that people should put the counter argument, put the best arguments against everything that I say, because therefore other people can read through it all, they can watch your videos on your topics when you disagree with me, and then they can decide where the truth lies for them, what they feel makes the most sense to them. But there's no need to meet in the middle. We need to avoid this appeal to moderation. The truth is where the truth is. It's not always in the middle. So the next logical fallacy is appeal to incredulity, which means is I can't understand it, therefore it must be wrong. Now, of course, that's not the way that it works, and we see this a lot within traditional martial arts. Kata as an example, if someone has been educated about the kata process and how it's supposed to work and how it informs life practice, and we often see those people go, oh yeah, I see how kata works. We also get people who haven't had that education who go, a kata's useless in a real fight. There's an element there of argument from incredulity, or they may be. Now, of course, when they've exposed themselves to the arguments of people like me, of why I think kata has value, that they're free, obviously, still to disagree. They may say, I've heard everything he says, I still disagree, and that is valid. But simply going, I can't understand how this may work, therefore I reject it. Right? So, and again, same here, I don't want to reject arguments just because I don't understand them. I need to educate myself as to what the other side is saying. Now, having done that, I'm totally within my rights to still disagree. Otherwise, we're going back to the previous fallacies of trying to find the middle ground all the time, okay? But that's another one to avoid. Argument from incredulity. If you don't understand it, it doesn't mean it's false. Likewise, if you believe it's false, it doesn't automatically mean you don't understand it. You could understand it and still believe a given position to be untrue. So the next two are related, right? So the first one we'll look at is appeal to novelty. Something is true or better simply by virtue of the fact it is new or modern. Now, of course, that's not the case. If something's better, it is better. If it's true, it's because it's true. It doesn't necessarily mean that just because something is newer or more modern, it is better. And that's related to the next logical fallacy. So the next one, closely related to the last one, is appeal to tradition, which is obviously a big one for the traditional martial arts. That something is true or better simply by virtue of the fact it's traditional. We've always done this, therefore this must be the best way of doing it. Again, that can be really problematic in traditional circles, that there is no doubt that traditional martial arts have not reached a state of perfection. No martial art has. We can always learn. There's always new sports science coming in. There's always new ways of training coming in. There's always new ideas and new equipment, and we should be open to them in order to get the best possible training. We shouldn't simply reject things on this basis of appeal to tradition. We've always done it this way, therefore it must be the best way of doing things. The best way of doing things will be the best way of doing things. That which is not necessarily the most traditional way of doing things. So the next one we have is the straw man argument, which is when someone takes an idea, misrepresents that idea, and then seeks to refute their misrepresentation as opposed to the original idea itself. Find this quite a lot online. An example would be quoting out of context, where people take a quote and then use that to infer that someone said something other than what they actually said. Yeah, another example of this is when people paraphrase or take the idea of another and put it in their own words, and in the process change the idea. They then refute their misrepresentation of the original idea as opposed to the idea itself. I find that happens to me quite a bit. I'm forever reading things where it says, as Ian thinks, as Ian has said, as Ian said in this interview. No, I didn't. No, I don't. I don't think that. Never said that. And I end up having to link people back to the original sources, you know, because they're employing a strawman argument. And again, it's a good reminder to always go back to the original sources ourselves, because again, then we can check firsthand, and we're less susceptible to falling victim to strawman arguments. So the final one, there are many others, but it's a big one, is ad hominem arguments. You see this a lot on the internet, which is arguing against the man. That you deem an argument to be invalid solely on the fact that the person making it is someone that you dislike in some way, right? So, and again, the strength of an argument is entirely independent of the person making that argument. You shouldn't accept an argument because you like the person making the argument, nor should you reject it because you dislike the person making the argument. The validity of an argument stands or falls on the strength of that argument itself. It's irrelevant who is making that argument. Now we see this, you know, this a lot, and it's on internet-based discussions in particular. You know, it's a little bit more anonymous, so people feel they can get away with being a little bit more impolite and even downright offensive, where people will be having a discussion and instantly will start insulting each other's mothers, dropping swear words in, calling characters into question. It's ad hominem arguing. It's weak arguing. And it's bad manners, right? You know, karate begins and ends with courtesy, as Funakoshi said. We should be polite to one another. You don't have to agree with everything everyone says, you know. You're not being dispolite simply because you disagree with somebody, but nor do you disprove an argument simply by being dispolite, you know. The strength of an argument is entirely independent of whether you like or dislike the person making the argument. And if our internet discussions, our in-person discussions that have validity, we need to avoid ad hominem arguments and stick to the actual argument being made. Well, I'm sure you recognise a lot of those, whether that's from in-person discussions in the dojo or online discussions. Now, obviously, you know, I'm not a professor of philosophy or anything like that. I'm putting forth these logical fallacies as a layman, but nevertheless, as presented to you, I'm sure you recognise them, and we need to get rid of them. We need better quality debate, better quality discussion, dissent, be self-critical and be open to criticism from others. Good ideas will thrive in that environment, right? And the bad ideas will get culled away. If we have such discussions that are devoid of emotion, devoid of dogma, and free of these logical fallacies, they're always of value. So, because you may learn something from it, the other person may learn something from it, and even if you both walk away with the same ideas that you already had, at least you hold those ideas with a little bit more legitimacy, because you've heard the best arguments against it, and yet nevertheless you still feel your idea is stronger than the best arguments from the opposing side. It's a good thing. It's always a good thing. Arguments based on emotion, dogma, full of logical fallacy, they're pointless. There's no point in having those. But good quality debate, the martial arts benefit from, and the individuals benefit from. And if we're talking online, you know, anyone who sees it or reads it can also benefit from it, because they get to see two opposing views. They get to see why the opposing views disagree, and therefore they can make an informed decision about which way they want to go. And the final thing I'll add is, I think it is important that, again, just to emphasise, we need to divorce the individual from the argument. Common thing I sometimes get is people write a comment where they'll go, no offence, but I disagree with you. Well, who would take offence at a simple disagreement? No one should. You may take offence at something else. I may take offence at something else, but I'll never take offence at disagreement. As discussed, it's healthy, providing it's free of dogma, it's not emotional, and particularly relevant to this video, it's free of the logical fallacies that we've discussed.